Exar Kun's story is one of the most striking in all of Star Wars legends, because it shows how a single Jedi's hunger for forbidden strength led to the death of entire civilizations, the near collapse of the Jedi Order, and a shadow that lingered for 4,000 years after his body was destroyed. Most fans know the Sith through Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine, but this ancient Dark Lord came long before either of them, and his influence shaped the darkness for generations. Using legend sources including Jedi vs. Sith, The Essential Guide to the Force, The Essential Guide to Weapons and Technology, the Jedi Academy Trilogy series, I, Jedi, Darth Plagueis, and Tales of the Jedi Companion, we can trace the full arc of this fallen Jedi, from his early training under a respected master to his creation of the double-bladed lightsaber, the war that burned worlds, the sorcery that kept his ghost alive inside stone temples, and his final defeat at the hands of students who had barely begun their training. Chapter 1: The Ambitious Student. Exar Kun did not begin as a Dark Lord. He began as one of the most promising students of his era, training on the planet Dantooine under the guidance of Master Vodo-Siosk Baas. In Jedi vs. Sith: The Essential Guide to the Force, the old master was among the most respected teachers in the Order, and his young pupil showed real talent in the ways of the Force. But even during these early years, the ambitious trainee carried something dangerous, a selfish desire for strength and forbidden secrets that went far beyond what any member of the Order was meant to pursue. Yet, the young student believed none of it would touch him. The Tales of the Jedi Companion describes him as gifted but deeply arrogant, convinced he could study the teachings of the old Sith without being consumed by them. He was certain his willpower was strong enough to take what he wanted from the darkness and walk away unchanged. This belief would become his defining flaw, a blind spot that no amount of talent could correct. Even from the beginning, this arrogance was woven into every decision he made. Driven by his hunger for forbidden knowledge, the ambitious student eventually abandoned his training altogether. The same guide details how his path away from the light began when he discovered the tomb of Freedon Nad, an old Sith follower on the jungle moon of Dantooine. That moment marked the true beginning of his fall, and what waited for him on the other side would change the galaxy forever. Chapter 2: The Path to Darkness. Nad's ghost did not simply wait to be found. It reached out to the former Jedi, pulling him deeper into the ways of the Sith. The Guide to the Force picks up the story here. The Shade directs the fallen student to travel to Yavin 4, a jungle moon that once served as the stronghold of the long-dead Sith warlord Nagasado. Surrounded by crumbling temples and overgrown ruins, the young exile explored Sadao's laboratories and fortresses, absorbing knowledge that had been buried for thousands of years. These were not simple Force techniques, they were tools of Sith sorcery and dark science, arts that the Jedi had long forbidden. But the fallen Jedi was never content to be anyone's follower for long. As his abilities grew on the jungle moon, he turned on the very shade that had guided him there. He grew so strong that he vanquished Nad's ghost, making sure he would have no rivals. This act revealed the core of who he truly was, someone who would use anyone and anything to climb higher, then throw them aside the moment they stopped being useful. With the old ghost gone and the secrets of Sadao's fortress at his command, the former student's transformation was nearly complete. However, the galaxy still had one more piece to put into place before he could claim the title he had been reaching for. Chapter 3: Dark Lord of the Sith. Exar Kun's rise did not happen alone. Across the galaxy, another Jedi had also fallen to the darkness. His name was Ulic Qel-Droma, a former Jedi who had originally gone undercover inside the Krath cult with the goal of destroying it from within. Instead, the darkness consumed him. The Guide to the Force recounts how, when the paths of these two fallen Jedi finally crossed, the result was a fierce duel, each one fighting to prove his control over the other. Then, something unexpected happened. In the middle of the night, the ancient shadow of Mark Aragnos appeared and stopped the duel. This long-dead Sith Master, whose influence still lingered in the Force, declared the fallen student the new Dark Lord and named Qel-Droma his apprentice. With that single act, a new Sith Order was born, carrying the full weight of the old Sith legacy behind it. The Tales of the Jedi Companion shows the newly crowned Dark Lord wasting no time building his base, establishing a vast Brotherhood of the Sith that once rivaled the Jedi in both numbers and strength. Champions of the Force confirms that this Brotherhood was a rebuilding of an older Sith order, reconstructed under new leadership to challenge the Jedi directly. His methods of recruitment were brutal and effective. The Guide to the Force reveals that the new Dark Lord used his abilities to turn Jedi students to the darkness, then commanded them to assassinate their own masters. Among those he corrupted was Cal Droma, who became his first apprentice, along with another Jedi named Larad Noon. In a matter of months, the former student of Baas had built himself an army, and the Order was bleeding from within. Chapter 4: The Weapon That Changed Everything. What made Exar Kun truly dangerous in combat was not just his connection to the Force, it was the weapon he created. The Essential Guide to Weapons and Technology credits the Dark Lord with the creation of the double-bladed lightsaber, a weapon that would become forever linked to his name. He built it by modifying his standard lightsaber, adding a second blade projector to the opposite end of the handle, allowing him to ignite two blue-white blades at the same time. Jedi vs. Sith: The Essential Guide to the Force goes further, describing this weapon as having been built from instructions found in an old Sith holocron, designed specifically for more effective killing. This was not a weapon of defense, it was built from the ground up as a tool of destruction. But the double-bladed design was only part of what made it so deadly. The weapons guide describes a set of custom controls that allowed him to change his blades in ways no opponent could predict. He could adjust each blade's length from half a meter to 1.5 meters in the middle of a fight. Even more tricky, he could switch a blade's intensity from its highest setting, strong enough to cut through the toughest metals, all the way down to a harmless shaft of light that offered no resistance at all. His fighting style matched the weapon perfectly. He wielded his saber like a long fighting staff, using one blade to block, while spinning the handle to deliver a killing blow with the second. One of his signature tactics involved suddenly shortening a blade or dropping its intensity during a clash, so that an opponent's lightsaber would pass through its now harmless blade, carrying them forward and off balance. In that split second, the Dark Lord would strike with the other end, turning his enemy's own attack into an opening that killed them. On top of these physical tactics, the Sith Duelist paired his swordplay with the ability to sense his opponent's moves before they made them. The same guide puts it plainly: the combination of an unpredictable weapon, misleading tactics, and the ability to read an enemy's next strike made him a virtually unstoppable fighter. Thousands of years later, this weapon's legacy still echoed through the Sith. In Darth Plagueis, when Darth Maul built his own double-bladed lightsaber, his master immediately recognized it as the weapon of the old Dark Lord. The double-bladed saber demanded extreme skill just to avoid injuring oneself, and only the most gifted fighters dared to wield one. The fact that Plagueis could identify it on sight showed just how deeply the old duelist reputation had been burned into Sith memory. Chapter 5: The Duel That Shook the Republic. With his Brotherhood growing and his weapon perfected, Exar Kun turned his attention to unfinished business. The Essential Guide to Weapons and Technology places one of his most important duels on the floor of the Republic Senate itself. There, in front of horrified senators and Jedi, the Dark Lord challenged and struck down his former master, Vodo-Siosk Baas. Jedi confirms that the fallen Jedi traveled to Coruscant and murdered his former teacher in the Senate chamber. The same master who had once trained him, who had tried to turn him back to the light, was cut down by the very student he had failed to save. The Guide to the Force fills in the rest. The Sith Duelist used his superior skills and modified weapon to overpower the old Jedi Master completely. And for all his wisdom and experience, Baas simply could not match the combination of the double-bladed saber and his former student's ruthless fighting style. Champions of the Force notes that after the old master tried one final time to turn his former student back to the light, the fallen Jedi killed him, and the fallen teacher became a martyr for the Jedi cause. This murder was not just personal, it was a message to every Jedi in the galaxy that the old ways cannot protect them. Meanwhile, Darth Plagueis records that the Sith Master was also capable of using the Force to freeze large crowds in place, and he performed this very feat against members of the Republic Senate. Between his dueling skill and his raw ability, there was no single opponent in the galaxy who could stand against him. Chapter 6: The Great Sith War. With the Brotherhood of the Sith at his back and Cal Droma as his apprentice, the Dark Lord launched the Great Sith War. a conflict that would scar the galaxy for generations. The Essential Guide to Weapons and Technology lays out the scale of the conflict. He led an army of followers in a campaign to wipe out the Jedi Knights and conquer the Republic. This was not a small rebellion or a border conflict. It was an organized attempt to destroy the Order and replace it with Sith rule. The level of destruction was staggering. The Guide to the Force recounts how he used weaponry from Naga Sadow's old flagship to destroy the 10 suns of the Crone Cluster, triggering a shockwave that tore across space and devastated the planet Ossus, wiping out the Great Jedi Library. In a single act, he erased thousands of years of Jedi history and learning. The Tales of the Jedi Companion confirms this account, noting that the 10 stars in the Crone Drift were triggered to explode, and that the burning of Ossus was among the worst losses the Order had ever suffered. Beyond raw destruction, he was also a master of dark science. The same guide reveals that he created monsters known as Terentatex, beasts born from Sith rituals and specifically designed to hunt and kill Jedi, along with the Dark Reaper, a super weapon fueled by the Force Harvester, which could drain the life energy of thousands of living beings at once. Darth Plagueis further describes his talent for sorcery, noting that the old Sith Master used these dark acts to create illusions, shape monstrous creatures, and even bring the dead back to life. The same source states that he could fill the entire atmosphere of a planet with dark energy, and that legends even claimed he was strong enough to make stars explode. Centuries later, Plagueis reflected on whether these old Sith were truly mightier than modern ones, or whether they simply benefited from an era when the darkness was stronger in the galaxy. Meanwhile, on Yavin 4, he built his personal stronghold by taking command of the native Massassi warriors and transforming their temples into centers of Sith influence. Champions of the Force paints a grim picture. He enslaved the entire native population and forced them to build a network of massive temples, including the Great Massassi Temple and the Obsidian Pyramid. iJedi adds that his primary base was the Obsidian Pyramid, located on a small island in a lake, which housed a massive statue that served as a center for his remaining spirit. But perhaps the cruelest act on the Jungle Moon comes from the Guide to the Force. The Sith Master created a device called the Golden Globe, designed specifically to trap and feed on the souls of Massassi children. He did not just enslave these people, he consumed them down to their youngest. Chapter 7: Death and Survival. The Great Sith War did not end in victory for Exar Kun. His own apprentice, Keldroma, eventually turned on him and led the Republic directly to the Sith stronghold on Yavin 4. The Essential Guide to Weapons and Technology tells us the resulting battle devastated the Jungle Moon and destroyed the Sith Master's twin-bladed lightsaber in the process. The weapon that had made him unstoppable was gone. A massive Jedi strike force, made up of hundreds of united Masters, then combined their strength to bring him down. In Dark Apprentice, this united front focused their combined energy against him, while Champions of the Force adds that the Jedi devastated the entire surface of Yavin 4, scorching the jungles to stop him once and for all. The companion source completes the picture. The combined Jedi strength laid waste to the moon's jungles, leaving the once green world a burned wasteland. But the Dark Lord refused to die. In a final, desperate act of Sith sorcery, he sacrificed everything he had left. The same source reveals that he drained the life force of every remaining Massassi slave to anchor his ghost within the temples, while his physical body was destroyed in the fire. The Guide to the Force backs this up, stating that he used Sith sorcery to destroy his own body and preserve his shade within the stone structures. Dark Apprentice puts it plainly: the Sith Master drained every remaining native to seal his ghost within the temples, waiting thousands of years until other Jedi arrived to awaken him. The enslaved race, tormented and exploited for years, became his final fuel. Every man, woman, and child was consumed so that his ghost could endure, and so the Dark Lord of the Sith entered a sleep that would last 4,000 years. His body gone, his lightsaber destroyed, his Brotherhood scattered, but his shadow trapped inside the stone temples of the Jungle Moon, waiting in silence for a new generation of Jedi to arrive. Chapter 8: The Dark Man. 4,000 years passed. The temples of Yavin 4 were swallowed by the jungle, and the native people were forgotten. Then, the Tales of the Jedi Companion tells us the ghost of the old Sith Master was first stirred when Luke Skywalker arrived at the secret rebel base on the Jungle Moon. 11 years later, when the Jedi Master founded his academy inside the Great Massassi Temple, the ancient presence became fully active and began whispering to students, seeking to corrupt them one by one. In Jedi Search, Skywalker chose the Great Temple as the site for his academy, a massive stone pyramid originally built by the vanished native race. He sensed that the alien structures were filled with secrets and knowledge of their own, and he felt a distinct energy and mystery surrounding the ruins. The location was isolated, overgrown by thick jungles, and far from the rest of the galaxy, making it ideal for training, but also the perfect hunting ground for a dark presence that fed on isolation and weakness. The same source reveals the danger building beneath the surface. During the Jedi Master's address to the New Republic Senate, senators like Garm Bel Iblis pointed out the terrible damage caused by Jedi who had fallen to the darkness, naming Darth Vader and Jerus Sabaoth as examples. Even the Jedi Master himself worried about whether he could bring a student back from the shadows if one of them fell, knowing that contact with the darkness could twist the minds and abilities of those sensitive to the Force. Yet the greatest danger was already inside the temple walls. The Dark Presence's first victim was a student named Gantoris, a Jedi candidate from the planet Il Shah. Jedi Search introduces the young man as someone haunted by recurring nightmares of a shadowy figure who offered him incredible secrets but ultimately destroyed him. When the Jedi Master first arrived to recruit him, the student mistook Skywalker for this dark figure from his dreams. Dark Apprentice reveals that the old shade haunted the young man's nightmares, disguised as this dark figure, secretly giving him instructions on how to build a complex lightsaber with multiple crystals that allowed for shifting blade lengths. When the student finally tried to resist the shade's influence, the Dark Presence used his own anger, specifically his rage, over the destruction of his colony on Dantooine, to burn him alive from the inside out. With his first victim dead, the Wraith turned to a far more powerful target, Kip Duran, the Academy's most gifted student. The same source shows the old presence mentoring the young man personally, claiming his abilities surpass even the Jedi Masters. He taught the young student ancient rites and history, appearing to him in the Obsidian Temple deep in the jungle, telling him that modern Jedi were weak because they blocked out the limitless abilities and secret rites of the Sith. The corruption worked. With the Wraith's help, the young student pulled the Suncrusher superweapon from the core of the gas giant Yavin, and the companion source backs this up, showing the Dark Presence using the Academy's most gifted student to draw this terrible weapon from the depths of the gas giant. Under the Shade's influence, the corrupted student went on to commit acts of destruction on a stellar scale, using the Suncrusher to devastate entire star systems. But the Shade did not stop with students. He went after the Jedi Master himself, first appearing in a dream disguised as Anakin Skywalker, urging Luke to use the Force as a tool for conquest. When that failed, the Presence physically appeared and destroyed the Jedi Holocron, shattering the image of his former Master Boss that lived within it. This act erased much of the Order's history, knowledge that could never be recovered. Then came the killing blow. In a coordinated attack alongside his corrupted student, the Dark Presence struck the Jedi Master directly. Dark Apprentice describes how the Wraith lashed out with waves of darkness and frozen poison, while serpent-shaped tendrils of black Force energy sank their fangs into Luke and dragged his spirit into a bottomless pit of cold emptiness. The Jedi Master's body was left in a death-like state, hovering between life and death, while his spirit was pulled into darkness. iJedi makes clear that the Wraith's ability to hide his presence was so complete that even a Jedi Master could not sense him while he was influencing his students just meters away. He preyed on the fears, ambitions, and doubts of the apprentices, using vivid illusions and images of loved ones to break their will, including using Corran Horn's wife and father against him. Despite having no physical body, the old presence could still affect the physical world, melting electronics and throwing opponents across rooms with enough force to break bones and cause serious internal damage. The same source describes his control over physical creatures, directing mindless two-headed winged monsters with crystal stingers through dark threads of influence. These were creatures born from Sith dark science, two-headed flying reptiles with metallic claws, and scorpion stingers dripping with black acid poison. Even after 4,000 years, the remains of his creations still serve the old Wraith's will. Meanwhile, the Shade also tried to turn the student Streen against the Academy. The companion source records that the Dark Presence entered the older student's mind while he slept, nearly tricking him into destroying the Jedi Master's unconscious body. The Wraith's plan was becoming clear. He intended to use the trainees as the core of a new, unbeatable Force-wielding army to resurrect his Brotherhood of the Sith. Through it all, the Old Presence held extreme disrespect for the modern Jedi, calling them puny and referring to them as bugs, while viewing his own strength as reaching the level of a god. His corrupted student, still under the Shade's influence, argued to others at the Academy that the old Sith Master had discovered a way for the Jedi to expand their abilities, and that the old Masters had only opposed him out of fear. The corruption ran deep, and the Academy was breaking apart. Yet for all his strength, the old Sith Master carried a weakness he never understood. Corran Horn makes a telling argument in I, Jedi. The Wraith's reliance on destruction actually weakened him over time, because life creates the Force. Every act of ruin, every soul consumed, left him with less to feed on, his energy worn thin by 4,000 years of draining and destroying. The end came when the Jedi Master's students finally stood together. Champions of the Force tells how 12 trainees, including Streen, Kirana T, and Silgal, surrounded the Shade and formed a ring of light through shared focus. The companion source provides a fuller list of those present: Streen, Kirana T, Silgal, Tion, Cam Solazar, Dorsk 81, and Bragus, aided by the ghost of his former Master Boss and the apparition of Luke Skywalker himself. The Master he had murdered 4,000 years ago had returned to witness his end. In a moment that ended 4,000 years of darkness, Kirana T, wielding Gantorus' lightsaber, and Streen, wielding Luke's, crossed their blades through the center of the Shade's shadowy body, creating an explosion of pure white light as bright as an exploding star. Streen then used his mastery of the wind to create a Force whirlwind that trapped the shredded remains of the Sith spirit and flung them out through the temple roof into the vast emptiness beyond. The old Sith vanished with a final, cut-short scream. I, Jedi records one final act of cleansing that followed. Horn flew his X-Wing to the Obsidian Temple that had served as the Sith Master's primary base, and used proton torpedoes and lasers to destroy the massive statue and the temple entirely, heating the stones until they ran like water and erasing the Sith writings and dark energy center that the old Lord had left behind. With the statue gone, and the temple melted to nothing, the last physical trace of the Wraith's presence on the Jungle Moon was wiped clean. Even after the Shade was gone, one student still had to face the Sith Master's lasting influence. The same source recounts how the corrupted student returned to the Obsidian Temple for a final internal test, confronting a dark image he believed was the ghost of the old Sith Master. Instead of striking in anger, he chose peace, and discovered that the shadow was actually a vision of his dead brother Zeth. The young man who had been the Wraith's greatest weapon finally broke free, not through strength, but through choosing to let go. 4,000 years of darkness ended by a circle of students who chose the light. But the story of Exar Kun was only one chapter in the long war between Jedi and Sith, shaped by the Dark Masters who came before him, from Naga Sadow to Mark Aragnos to Freedon Nad, all part of a legacy stretching back to the very dawn of the Sith Order. That full timeline, and the story of Star Wars told entirely from the Sith perspective, still has much more to tell.